Dave Stahl is here to help you avoid expensive mistakes and ripoffs. This is You Oughta Know. You Oughta Know. With the car guy, Dave Stahl, on Intelligent Talk 1170 KCBQ. Call now, 888-344-1170.
All right, folks. Hey, welcome back. You're listening to the You Oughta Know show. This segment is brought to you by the good folks at Bumper Doc. Anybody out there with a lease car? Here's a little trick you may not know. When that lease is up and you haven't read the lease agreement, which I know you haven't, so don't sit there and lie to me and tell me that you have. But when you bring that vehicle back to the dealership that you bought it from, guess what they do? They take that car and take it to a body shop, maybe their own, and they will go from headlight to taillight on that car, and they will write an estimate to bring it back up to the standards that it was in according to the lease agreement. And it could be tires. I had a guy, $3,500. He almost had a heart attack. Contacted me. I go, you signed a lease agreement. That's what it is. But Bumper Doc has a program that you'd only pay a fraction of what the dealership's going to charge you, and they'll take care of all that. And then the smart thing to do is that when you trade your vehicle and you take the receipt from Bumper Doc, they're recognized by most of the insurance companies, and that'll take you off the heat, so they're not going to come back at you and sting you. 866 Dr. Bumper. Our special guest with us today is Janet F. Williams. You don't ask, you don't get. And she has a segment in her book. And as I was giving that little example, she was thumbing through her book feverishly. And she was showing me, look. That's exactly what I got.
It's in there.
Exactly.
It's in there. I've got a chapter here called Drive Your Best Car Deal.
There you go.
And in the subheading under financing, I have a couple different sections. One is for leasing ask, and one of the questions I've got here is what is expected at lease end regarding the condition of the car?
That's right.
Because you may find that you're going to need to replace the tires or something else, and you have to account for that money.
Yeah.
It's not just the price of the lease.
Well, see, people think, well, leasing is just like renting. Yeah, I can poke holes in it. I can drop ice cream on the carpet. Yeah, it's not my place. What do I care? You may not do it. You may not give a cleaning deposit when you buy a car. But in lease, what you sign is that you're going to give it back to them. Some manufacturers, like BMW, does require the original tires. Mm-hmm. And if, for example, I'd gotten this. Well, yeah, you work for BMW.
That's right. They're going to want the Continentals or
whatever's on it. Well, I had a little Mini Cooper S that they'd given me. I had it like 2 weeks. Got a rock in the windshield.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
Jeez Louise, now it's cracked, and so I go to the parts department. Just a windshield on a Mini. Now this is a Mini. Okay, this is not a big car. $700 for the windshield.
Did it have the antenna in the windshield?
No.
And it was still that much?
No. It was a very up straight windshield, which is a proponent to getting chips. So I'm thinking, oh, man. So then I thought, geez, I wish I knew somebody that wrote a book that said if you don't ask, you don't get. But I didn't know that person, so I had to use my own abilities. And I walked over to the service manager, and I said, dude, I've only had this thing 2 weeks. I don't even have 500 miles on it. And look, I got a chipped windshield. Is there anything you can do to help me?
And?
Put a new windshield in it.
Yeah. And did he charge you?
No, didn't charge me a dime.
Okay.
Because I asked.
And because he wanted to deliver good customer service.
Exactly.
Because of who you are.
Not even because of who I was, because he didn't even really know who I was.
Oh.
He just knew I was a customer, but I went in polite.
You asked for help.
Yeah, I went in saying, you are not going to believe what happened to my car. You are just not going to believe it. And he comes out and goes, oh, man. He was just as crushed as I was.
Yeah.
And, and I'm not going to go. And actually, it was a guy like Jan was going to do a project at home. Had a little Toyota pickup truck with one of those little cement mixers thingies on the back bouncing along the freeway. And as I pulled up behind it, rock came off. Putinks. I mean, like he doesn't have no big insurance policy. But I asked, and I got it. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, well, why don't you hang on to that windshield until a week before I trade this thing in? Right. Because I just know I'm going to crack it again.
Do it again. And when you turn in your lease car, and I know this from personal experience, I was personally tasked with having to do that. It wasn't always easy to tell people your car needs to be brought up to X condition, and you need a new windshield, or you need those new tires, or you've got one tire that's the wrong brand, and the other three are okay, but you got to replace that one. And no, they never want to hear that.
No.
If people are looking for a vehicle and they want to look at the chapter Drive Your Best Car Deal, I've got a lot of information in here about the questions that they should be asking. First, asking themselves about which car they should be getting, asking for recommendations. looking at their motivations so that they actually make a good decision for themselves, and then doing some proactive work on their own behalf so that they're not afraid when they walk in the dealership. They've already armed themselves with the information they need so that they don't have to be fearful of being taken advantage of at the dealership.
And if it doesn't fit within your plan, then it doesn't fit. So that may be a good example. A lot of people don't think about when they're buying a car that they check with the insurance company.
And I've got some notes about that
Exactly.
in here. This is a good overview for anybody who's thinking about buying a new or used car from a dealership, from a private party, from the internet where you may never see the car or the buyer.
That's a
or
scary one.
if you're the seller of a vehicle, just some good common sense advice, good questions you should have the answers to before you move forward.
And the biggest problem with buying or selling a car, and it's other than being in the business, it's emotional. And emotions get in the way. I mean, I just bought a really nice little 83 Buick Electra Park Avenue station wagon.
That's a comfortable ride.
Thing is 100 feet long. I love this car, and I bought it from one of my listeners because I helped him get into a larger car. Not larger, a newer car. Again, you don't ask, you don't get. And I went over to the house with him, and I got it all taken care of. In fact, it was funny. Two of your don't ask, you don't get. He found a car. He doesn't use the internet very well, so I helped him get on the internet, and I went through budget, had the car he wanted. And he says, "Geez, Davey, I just can't drive up there." I go, "What are you talking about drive? Call the guy up, tell him that you want the car and to bring it to you." He goes, "Bring it to me." I said, "Look, they got people that'll follow him. They got trains. They got all kinds of things. Just call him up and ask him." And he says, "Well, I don't want to pay for it." Now, did I say anything about you paying to have the car delivered? No, just call the guy up, tell him you'll buy it, and you just have him deliver it. He called me back. He says, "David, they said yes."
That's a great story.
It's like, oh, cool. So they came down, and then transaction was just about over with, and the car hadn't arrived yet. And I said, "Oh, by the way, what are you going to do with your old car?" He said, "Oh, the guy said he'll give me $200 for it." I said, "Heck, I'll give you $250." So I bought it for $250. But if I hadn't asked, I wouldn't have had it.
That's right.
And if he hadn't asked, it wouldn't have been delivered.
Yeah.
So, but now, unfortunately, the deal did get a little bit weird because they bumped another $1,000 on the price of the car, said it was a computer glitch in the internet, and
did he have it in writing?
Of course he does.
Yeah.
And then he also has me because I found it and I can verify it. So, but he's got to go through all that.
Right.
He's an older gentleman. He's in his late 70s.
So you're helping him.
Oh, absolutely. Which people will have a tendency to try to take advantage of the older sector out there.
You have to be very watchful.
Got to be very, very watchful. And the biggest deal is, I know if you've heard this once, you've heard it many times, if it sounds too good to be true, most likely it is. One thing, and I don't know if you have this in your book, and I really hope you do, and that's information on a due bill.
Yes.
Thank goodness.
Yes, if it's not in writing, it doesn't
Thank you very much.
exist.
That's a dope.
If it is in writing, you get it.
That's right. And it doesn't hurt to ask. It never hurts to ask. And if you feel uncomfortable asking, you might want to think about why you're asking. Because normally if you feel uncomfortable asking, you might have a reason to be uncomfortable.
That's right. You're going to have one of those motivations.
Follow your gut.
One of those 7 motivations
Right.
is holding you back.
Right. If you know it's not going to be a good deal for everybody in concern, and then don't do it.
Well, do you have anything in there about bringing a friend along to help?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. Sometimes you don't even want to be the person asking.
No.
You want to have a third party, an uninvolved party do you're asking for you.
Who's emotionally detached?
That's right.
Have you seen the new Mini Cooper commercial?
No.
This makes me think of you. It is absolutely who. The guy walks in. It's a guy, and he's got his wife and his daughter, and he's walking up to the Mini Cooper, and he says, "Okay, this is the Mini Cooper." "Yep." "All right, here's the deal. I'm going to take $2,000 off because I don't care if it has 4 seats. I only want 2 seats." And he's really wheeling the deal, and he says, because it's a 4-cylinder, he said, "I'm not paying for those extra 2 8-cylinders, so you're going to knock off another $1,500, and this, that, back and forth." Well, it was just the customer had turned the table on the salesman, and the salesman at the very end said, because the guy was saying, "Okay, and I want 30 miles per gallon," and the guy says, "Okay, deal, but I'm going to give you 37 miles per gallon." Cute as can be. We're going to take a small break, folks. You're listening to the You Ought to Know Show right here on KCBQ AM 1170. This is Intelligent Talk Radio.